You know that feeling when you're trying to connect with someone you love, but somehow the conversation spirals into frustration? You meant well. They meant well. Yet both of you end up feeling misunderstood, maybe even a little resentful. What happened? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most relationship conflicts aren't really about what we think they're about. They're not about who forgot to take out the trash, or who said what at dinner, or even about the actual problem being discussed. The real issue? We're speaking different emotional languages, and neither of us has the translation guide. Today, I want to explore a powerful idea that completely changed how I understand relationship dynamics. It comes from John Gray's classic book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, but what I'm sharing isn't a summary of that book. Instead, I want to dig into one profound insight from it and expand on what it means for all of us, regardless of gender, in our quest to build better connections. So let's talk about why the people we love most are often the ones we misunderstand most deeply. Picture this scenario. Someone you care about comes home after a difficult day. They start talking about everything that went wrong. The frustrating meeting. The overwhelming deadlines. The colleague who said something hurtful. They go into detail. They circle back to points they already made. They express their emotions openly. And if you're a certain type of person, something inside you activates. Your problem-solving mode switches on. You start thinking, okay, how do we fix this? You begin offering solutions. Practical advice. Logical next steps. After all, if someone's telling you about a problem, they must want help solving it, right? Wrong. What just happened is one of the most common relationship disconnects that exists. And John Gray identified this pattern brilliantly in his work. He observed that many women, when sharing their struggles, aren't looking for solutions at all. They're looking for something else entirely. They want to feel heard. They want to feel understood. They need their emotions validated and their experiences acknowledged. The act of talking extensively about their problems is itself the processing mechanism. It's how they regulate their emotions, how they make sense of their day, how they release the pressure that's been building. They're not asking you to fix anything. They're asking you to be present with them in their experience. But here's where it gets complicated. For many men, as Gray points out, talking about problems serves a completely different function. Men often only bring up problems when they're specifically seeking advice or when they need to establish who's responsible for something. When a man talks about a problem, there's usually an implicit question attached. What should I do about this? Or, whose fault is this? So when a woman talks at length about her struggles, a man might unconsciously interpret this through his own framework. He thinks, she must be asking for my help. She must want me to solve this. And when he jumps in with solutions, he genuinely believes he's being supportive. He's showing he cares by trying to fix what's wrong. But to her, it doesn't feel supportive at all. It feels dismissive. It feels like he's not really listening, just waiting for his turn to talk. It feels like he's implying that her feelings are problems to be eliminated rather than experiences to be shared. She might even feel like he's suggesting that she's incapable of handling things herself. Meanwhile, he's confused and hurt. He offered help, tried to be useful, and somehow that made things worse. He might start to feel like nothing he does is right. He might feel blamed for problems he didn't create. And when she continues to vent without implementing his suggestions, he might feel frustrated, thinking, if you're not going to take my advice, why are you still complaining? See the disconnect. Both people entered the conversation with good intentions. Both people were trying to connect. But they were operating from completely different instruction manuals about what communication is supposed to accomplish. John Gray's insight is that these conflicts arise not from a lack of love, but from a mistranslation of needs. It's not that people don't care about each other. It's that they don't understand what the other person is actually asking for. The solution, according to Gray, requires work from both sides. Women need to communicate their needs more explicitly before starting a conversation. Something as simple as, "I need to talk about my day, and I'm not looking for advice, I just need you to listen," can completely change the dynamic. It sets the right expectation from the beginning. And men need to develop a different skill set, learning to listen without immediately moving into fix-it mode. Learning to offer emotional support instead of logical solutions. Learning to say things like, "That sounds really difficult," or "I can understand why you'd feel that way," instead of "Here's what you should do." This takes practice because it goes against deeply ingrained patterns. But the result is transformative. She feels heard and supported. He doesn't feel responsible for solving unsolvable problems or blamed for things outside his control. The conversation becomes a source of connection rather than conflict. Now, here's where I want to expand beyond what Gray originally explored. While he framed this primarily through the lens of gender differences, I think this dynamic actually transcends gender. It's more accurate to think of these as different personality-based approaches to emotional processing. Some people, regardless of gender, are external processors. They think out loud. They need to verbalize their experiences to make sense of them. They seek validation and emotional resonance. When they talk, they're not presenting a finished thought requesting feedback. They're actively working through their emotions in real time, and they need a witness to that process. Other people are internal processors. They think things through privately first. When they speak about a problem, they've usually already done substantial mental work on it, and they're seeking input at a decision point. For them, extended discussion without forward movement feels inefficient or even frustrating. Neither approach is better or worse. They're just different. And relationships often bring together people with different processing styles, which creates rich potential for both connection and misunderstanding. I've seen this play out beyond romantic relationships too. Friendships can suffer from the same mistranslation. A friend vents about work stress, and you immediately start suggesting new jobs they should apply for, when all they wanted was someone to say, "Your boss sounds terrible, you're not crazy for being upset." Or the reverse, a friend asks what you think about a situation, and you offer emotional validation when they actually wanted your strategic opinion. Parent-child relationships have this dynamic as well. A teenager comes home upset about drama with friends. A parent who immediately jumps to advice-giving might shut down the very conversation they wanted to have. The teen wasn't looking for a 5-step plan to resolve the conflict. They were looking for acknowledgement that their feelings matter. Even workplace relationships can stumble over this. A colleague mentions they're overwhelmed, and you respond with time management tips, not realizing they were actually hoping you'd recognize their hard work and offer some appreciation or understanding. So what's the deeper pattern here? What's really happening beneath all these mistranslations? I think it comes down to this. Human beings have different fundamental needs in moments of vulnerability, and we're not always good at identifying or articulating what we need, even to ourselves. Sometimes what we need is problem solving. We genuinely want fresh perspectives, practical solutions, or a logical framework to help us move forward. In those moments, advice is the highest form of care someone can offer us. But other times, what we need is something more primal. We need to know we're not alone. We need to feel that our internal experience is real and valid. We need someone to simply be with us in our struggle without trying to make it go away. We need empathy, not solutions. The tragedy is that when we don't make this explicit, when we assume the other person just knows what we need, we set ourselves up for painful misunderstandings. The person offering solutions feels unappreciated and confused. The person seeking empathy feels dismissed and alone. And both people start building resentment. Resentment is particularly dangerous because it accumulates quietly. Each small misunderstanding adds another brick to a wall that neither person intended to build. Over time, that wall becomes a barrier to intimacy. You start feeling like your partner, your friend, your family member just doesn't get you. You start feeling exhausted by the effort required to connect. And you might even start questioning whether the relationship is right at all. But here's the hopeful part. Once you understand that this is a translation problem rather than a love problem, you can actually do something about it. The first step is getting comfortable with explicitly stating your needs before entering an emotional conversation. This feels awkward at first. It can seem unnatural to preface your thoughts with meta-communication about what kind of response you're hoping for. But think about it this way: if you were navigating in a foreign country and you wanted directions, you wouldn't just start talking and hope the other person figures out what you need. You'd make your request clear. The same principle applies to emotional navigation. I need to vent for a few minutes, and I'm not looking for solutions right now, just someone to listen. That one sentence can save an entire conversation from derailing. Or, I'm struggling with something and I could really use your advice on what to do. That sentence gives the other person permission to engage in the way they might naturally want to anyway. It's not about game playing or manipulation. It's about clarity. It's about taking responsibility for helping the other person give you what you actually need, rather than expecting them to be a mind reader. On the flip side, if you're someone who tends toward problem solving, the challenge is developing the capacity to simply hold space for another person's experience without needing to change it. This is harder than it sounds. Sitting with someone's pain or frustration without trying to fix it can feel uncomfortable, even helpless. You want to do something. You want to make it better. That impulse comes from a good place. But learning to be present without being productive is a profound skill. It requires trusting that sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is nothing except witness and validate. This means practicing phrases like, "That sounds really hard. I hear you. That makes total sense. You're not overreacting. I'm here with you." These aren't empty platitudes. They're affirmations that the other person's experience matters, that their feelings are legitimate, that they're not alone. And here's something interesting. When you do this well, when you truly listen and validate without jumping to solutions, something almost magical happens. Often, the person talking actually arrives at their own solutions. Just the act of feeling heard and understood clears the emotional clutter enough that they can think more clearly. The solution they find themselves is usually better than any advice you could have given anyway because it comes from their own insight. There's one more layer to this that's worth exploring. Sometimes these communication patterns become so ingrained that they stop being just behaviors and start feeling like identity. If you've spent years being the problem solver in your relationships, you might start to feel like that's your value. Your worth becomes tied to your ability to fix things for others. So when someone doesn't want your solutions, it can feel like a personal rejection. It can feel like you're being told you're not useful or necessary. Similarly, if you've spent years feeling unheard, you might develop a narrative that people don't really care about you, that your emotions are burdensome, that you're too much. And that narrative becomes a lens through which you interpret every interaction, making it hard to recognize when someone actually is trying to support you in their own way. Breaking these patterns requires not just changing what you say, but examining the beliefs underneath. It requires asking yourself, why does it feel so urgent to fix other people's problems? Is it possible that listening is just as valuable as solving? Or, why do I assume that someone offering advice means they don't care? Is it possible they're showing love in the only way they know how? This kind of self-reflection is uncomfortable but necessary. Because until we understand our own emotional patterns, we'll keep repeating them, and we'll keep ending up in the same frustrating dynamics. What I love about John Gray's original insight is that it points to something universally true about human relationships. We are all works in translation. We're constantly trying to bridge the gap between internal experience and external expression, between what we mean and what we say, between what we need and what we ask for. And the people we're in relationship with are doing the same thing. They're trying to decode us while we're trying to decode them. It's a wonder we ever understand each other at all. But when we do, when we get the translation right, something beautiful happens. We feel seen. We feel known. We feel less alone in the world. And that feeling, that sense of true connection, is worth all the awkward meta-conversations and conscious communication practices we have to develop to get there. The conflicts in our relationships aren't signs that we're incompatible or that love isn't enough. They're signs that we're human beings trying to connect across different internal worlds. And with awareness, with practice, with a willingness to make our needs explicit and to really listen to the needs of others, we can bridge those worlds. Now, I want to be clear, what I've shared today is just one insight from Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. John Gray's book is full of valuable lessons about relationship dynamics, communication patterns, and the different ways people express and experience love. I highly recommend reading it for yourself if you want to go deeper into these ideas. And this is just the beginning of what we're going to explore together on this channel. My goal is to dive into powerful books that offer genuine insights for personal growth, for professional development, for achieving the goals that matter to you. Not to summarize these books, but to extract the lessons that can actually change how we think and live. If that sounds valuable to you, I'd love for you to subscribe and join me on this journey. We're going to explore more transformative ideas, more practical wisdom, more tools for becoming the people we want to be. Not just in our relationships, but in every area of life that matters. Because here's what I believe: growth is possible. Change is possible. Better communication, deeper connection, more fulfilling relationships, all of it is possible. But only if we're willing to do the work of understanding ourselves and understanding each other.